time in United States we are living in a high political tide. And with the high political tide, we are seeing tensions, and we have witnessed the killing of civilians by the police, and the killing of the police by civilians. I do believe that we as Christians, we do have a message of reconciliation. The Bible tells us that God was in Christ, reconciling the whole world unto himself, and not counting their offenses against them. So in this series, we are going to talk about reconciliation, and we cannot talk about reconciliation without identifying the causes of problem. Of course, the major cause of problem is prejudice. And prejudice itself alone, it doesn't bring destruction. What brings destruction is when prejudice becomes pathological. Now, we are going to talk about the prejudice itself. And one thing which we need to accept is that there is no community which does not have prejudice. But what can help us is when we can start examining ourselves. Socrates at one time made a great statement that an examined life is not worth the living. So I believe what we need to do as various communities and races is to examine ourselves. We need to talk about the prejudice itself. Of course, in ANCCI University, I encourage the student to talk about themselves. Our philosophy of education is that the true education is the meeting of meanings. That is the meanings from the student, the meanings from the faculty member. And one of the things which we had done is discussing our prejudice as people who come from different communities. And I remember one interesting discussion was how we perceive ourselves and how we perceive other communities. And I started by sharing the prejudice from my particular community. Of course, I come from that community which is known as Kikuyu. And one of the things which, of course, I shared with the student was that if 5 Kikuyus are walking with one person who is not a member of his community, in old days, if you could ask him how many people were there, if there were 5 Kikuyus and one man from another community, the answer will be there was only 5 people. And then when I shared that, a Congolese shared their prejudice that if 200 people are in the aircraft, and then when you get out, your people will ask you how many people are there. If you were only one, the answer will be there were only one person, even if they were 200. And so what we need to do is to accept that we are prejudicial. It's very interesting the way Jesus dealt with prejudice. And one of the shining examples is the way he dealt with Nathaniel. Nathaniel was invited by Philip. Philip told him that we have seen the Messiah. Quickly, Nathaniel responded, "Can anything good come from Nazareth?" And then Philip wisely told him, "Come and see." So Nathaniel followed Philip, and they went to Jesus. And then what was interesting was that Jesus did not judge Nathaniel because of his prejudice. When he saw him coming, he said, "An Israelite indeed, in whom there is no deceit." Nathaniel was surprised. And then Nathaniel wanted to know a little bit more about this person who would accept him and doesn't care about his prejudice. And so Jesus eventually engaged him in a dialogue, and he showed him that he knew him even when he was under the fig tree. And eventually Nathaniel proclaimed Jesus as Messiah. So they started by dealing with prejudice. And so what we need to do is to bring people of different races, different social strata together, so that we can talk and discuss. If we can eat together, share our lives together, what we eventually end up seeing is that we are a more human being than our races. And so I am inviting the society to start fellowships or dialogue. If you are a white, make sure that you have a friend who is black. And if you are a black person, make sure that you have a friend who is white. And if that friend becomes so real to you, his community will also become real. And we are going to share several incidents whereby God has used me to break cultural barriers.